Any comments or questions? I think we'll sort of kind of wrap this portion up with the question of study abroad, internships, like how were you abroad for a shorter period of time or short periods of time or a longer period of time? So just kind of a general, sense of what was valuable, what you felt was perhaps most valuable to you, shorter periods or internships or longer periods or other.
I think any amount is better than nothing. I would say the longer that you can try to be somewhere, the better. And especially, I know other students that have studied abroad with the university. I think it always helps if you can find other, whatever your living arrangements are. If you're in, in an apartment, if you can find other people from that country that you can live with instead of living with, say, a group of other Iowa State students, because otherwise you kind of stay in a bubble of Iowa State in another country, and then I think you're missing a lot of the advantages. Whereas if you're surrounded by people from that culture, then it's a lot easier to kind of practice the language more and just get more out of it. You almost get more out of that than the classes sometimes.
I think that's exactly what I would say, is that you can learn way more from just being there and going out and in being uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations in just using the language and forcing yourself to use it. Then you could definitely go to a foreign country and isolate yourself and just speak English with other English speaking people or with other foreign people, and you're just speaking English, and that's not helpful at all. So it's about immersing yourself in that culture and putting yourself out there and making it a little awkward, maybe, I think, helped a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I went on 2 trips to Germany. One was just a month long, so I could kind of see if I actually wanted to live in Germany, or I just lived there for a year. And in that year, I got to meet a lot of other foreign students and live with German students, and that immersion made a big difference.
Yeah, I think just in general, students who have been abroad for a longer period of time, and I really like the internship component too. I know you said you did one. The students just come back with really great stories that I think they can use in a professional interview, or great bullet points that they can put on their resume or on their CVs. I really like the internship component.
And I guess I would say that the time that you spend in the country is important. I've done 2 trips at Iowa State. I went to China for a semester, and then I came back here and got a scholarship from the Chinese government and went back for a year. The second one I would say was I got a lot more out of it, but I've also seen people who were somewhere for a year or longer, and they only hang out with English-speaking Americans. They only hang out with the people they're comfortable with, and they don't get anything out of it. So I think a lot of it has to do with how much you want to put into your time, because I've said this to Professor Mu before, that I think the classes here, the Chinese classes here, are better than the Chinese classes I've had in China. But you don't have the element of you're living and immersed and surrounded in the culture and the sights and sounds and smells and all the other good stuff. So a lot of it, I mean, you'll get more. There's more potential for a longer trip, but also it's up to you ultimately if you want to work and learn whatever you get out of it.
I mean, clearly getting out of your comfort zone, like you're addressing, is important, but it's hard to do that. And do any of you have any stories about doing this? I mean, there's always a place where you have to jump off, and then,
One experience I had when I was an exchange student at a German high school, and are just traveling, I had an iPod, and I'd listen to music, and that was kind of a crutch that I had to not do, because otherwise if you're sitting on the train or if you're on the bus, you always have earbuds in and you're listening to music, then you're kind of isolating yourself from just meeting someone and talking to them in the foreign language, or even, instead of listening to music, just pick up a newspaper and read the newspaper, and you can maybe learn more about the culture and just practice.
What kind of music were you listening to?
English? Yeah, a lot of, just American music, and then also it makes it harder to switch back and forth if you're always listening to music with English lyrics, and then you're in a country that doesn't speak English, then it makes it that much harder for you to kind of switch back and forth.
I had a really easy jumping off point. I landed on the plane. When I landed in the plane, it was the summer that H1N1 was everywhere, and I had a fever. So my first day in China was in a Chinese hospital. And so everything after that was a lot easier because it couldn't have been worse. So, but I think what the jumping off point, I think for us was you make friends who speak that language and choose times where you only speak Chinese. And if they want to learn English, maybe a day where you only speak English and force yourself, find little rules to give yourself that you can do it. Or say, tell your friend, I'm going to meet you at this restaurant. Pick a restaurant, tell me what the name of it, and we'll meet there tonight. I'll ask people how to get there. It's a really good way of just giving yourself little tasks, little ways to learn more every time.
I found the way in Germany that everyone got out of their shell was through alcohol.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to a brewery or we had a company retreat where everyone got incredibly drunk. That was everyone's way of getting out of their shell.
Thanks. I actually had a student who told me that he was in a country where it was trendy at the time for men to wear scarves. So he was feeling really uncomfortable just about the whole situation, and so he finally went out and bought himself a scarf. And so whenever he would wear the scarf, he would just feel more comfortable being there, and that would be his time to go talk to people, meet new people, because he almost felt like he was kind of in a costume too. So you can always buy yourself a scarf.
Well, I guess what would I say to that? About being uncomfortable, I don't have anything great, but I do, I guess, have kind of a funny story. I officiated a wedding in China, which I had no business doing whatsoever. And I guess that was super awkward and uncomfortable, but like I'm glad I did it because it was a good experience. And
in Chinese, you did it?
it was in English, but the rest of the ceremony was in Chinese. All they wanted was a white person in a robe. So it would look cool, basically. And
For Instagram.
yeah, and the Chinese people were all really confused because they had never seen anything like it. So after I had gotten done reading their vows, everyone was like, "Oh, okay, what was that? Let's go eat. Like, what are we doing? You know, listening to this guy wearing jeans and a Harry Potter robe and like talking to us."
Yeah. Any questions for our panelists here before we're going to take a little break and have some cookies and juice or mingle. Any questions or comments on here?
It's the fact that you, Nick, have studied Spanish and Chinese, and you're very good at English. Does that really open up huge vistas for you for working in China or Latin America or Spain or in international business, having to do with those parts of the world?
Well, that's kind of the goal, right? Like you think about what you're doing and you hope that it's going to get you noticed or whatever, but now I'm kind of discovering you have to put in the work and you have to go find these things yourself. No one's going to hand you them. So I think it has brought a lot of interest. Like the job that I had this summer for Musco, I would never have gotten that otherwise, but they looked at my resume and they said, okay, you can do this, you're willing to move around, that's great. And so I started doing it, but I don't know if that answers your question. But yeah, you have to do the work yourself. Eventually, it comes down to you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, before you go abroad and get all this experience of intercultural exchanges, have you connected with students, international students here on campus when you were students? Like, have you met Chinese students here and got involved in activities with them, or some Mexican students or some Canadian students, or did you just wait to go abroad and then you start connecting and understanding the culture?
I became friends with a couple German students when I interned at John Deere here in Iowa. That they were here from Germany, they studied ICU and then interned at John Deere. I made friends with them, and then actually we all went back to Germany at the same time. And they lived around the block from me when I lived in Germany, so they were kind of my German people to go to when I had questions. That was really helpful.
It's very easy to make Chinese friends on campus. There's a lot of Chinese students now.
Yeah, I can't say I've had too many international friends. Like Nick says in engineering, there's a lot of students from China. I have met a few exchange students from Germany that I've talked to, and I usually tell them, oh, I was in Germany. But kind of I try to talk to them in German, and then they usually like just start speaking back to me in English because they want to learn English. But yeah, it's definitely kind of neat getting to see other students that have kind of done what you've done, but reverse, coming to the United States and seeing what their perspective is and asking, what do you think about the university system and our sports culture and stuff like that connected with the university. So. just kind of neat to hear their perspectives on it.